Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7, the only daily Star Wars podcast. So I'm continuing my series of deep dives into the Last Jedi novelization, and we are wrapping up the Canto Bight series of events with Rose and Finn starting off in the prison cell and ending with them escaping. Now, I'm jumping around a little bit because this actually interleaves with Poe going stir-crazy on board the Raddus, and we'll talk about that as well, but not today. We're just going to talk about the elements of the Poe and Rose and BB8 story that did not get included in The Last Jedi, but that you might be interested in hearing about. First of all, in a nod to Return of the Jedi, Finn is trying to pick the lock of their prison cell door, but just like with Han and the shield bunker door on Endor, a little plate comes over and blocks the locking mechanism. So yeah, more security instead of less. So that doesn't work out very well. And Rose is in her head going, you know, this is ridiculous, and kind of mocking Finn for his attempts at this. And they actually get into a rousing argument, much more so than anything that we saw in the movie. And it all has to do with Rey. Here Finn goes about Rey again, and they're stuck in this cell, and the fleet's going to be doomed, and Rey's going to be doomed when she gets back. And so Rose starts yelling at him about being a selfish traitor, and Finn gives it right back at her and says, you know, wouldn't you be doing the same thing if it was your sister on the line? And that really sets Rose over the edge, and she actually gives him a good shove for it, but ultimately they decide, I guess, okay, well, maybe we're not as far apart on this whole thing as it seems. And speaking of yelling, Rose has also been yelling through the prison cell doors too, trying to get a lawyer, trying to get anyone's attention there, to no avail, except for DJ, of course. The implication is actually given that there are more prisoners than just Rose and Finn and DJ in this cell, but DJ's the only one who wakes up, and it says in the novel that Rose comes to think of him as DJ because of the "Don't Join" little plaque on his hat. And as we know, he tries to offer his services, and they're like, nah, we're good, thanks. And so he says, well, suit yourself, and lets himself out of the prison cell, and so they go running as well. They find the grate to escape into the sewers, and they actually have an argument down in the sewers about which way to go, and that of course didn't show up in the movie. They play a version of Eeny Meeny Miny Mo called Wonga Winga. And they actually do it in the novelization. So Mark Thompson, who is the narrator for the book in audio, actually does the whole wingo, the whole rhyme basically of the two of them arguing. And it turns out that Finn wins the argument to go upstream where it smells very bad, and that leads them to where the fathiers are. And for the record, it is the matriarch of the fathier herd that Rose and Finn get to ride out of the stables at Canto Bight. And the scene of them running through Canto Bight and trashing everything goes on a bit longer than in the movie. And I mean that in the sense of we learn more about the things that they're crashing into and destroying. There's a sauna that it goes into, the fathier, and it just utterly trashes the place. And it's actually funny when you listen to it because it's just demolishing it. And Mark Thompson's narration is rather joyful, and Rose, of course, is excited about this whole thing and talks about how the fathier is just as excited to be destroying this town as she is. So it's good fun. And they get to the beach, and instead of what we saw in the movie where they're running straight up the wall, or so it seemed, up that cliff, it seems like it's a more zigzaggy route, and ultimately they run toward the cliff and nearly fall off, and etc., etc., and that pretty much goes the rest of the way that you saw it in the movie. Meanwhile, there's all the stuff with BB8 getting into the jail and the stuff that he does with DJ. And we actually spend a little bit of time inside BB-8's head, so to speak, as he thinks about how he's going to possibly get Rose and Finn out of this prison. Apparently, the proceedings for getting a hearing for bail are going to take too long, like the fleet is going to be destroyed before that happens, and the amount of money that he has collected by masquerading as a slot machine is not going to be enough to bribe an official. So these are things that are going on inside BB-8's processing core. Like, he's trying to improvise and thinks that he might have learned a thing or two about improvisation from Poe. So he ends up managing to skate into the police station, just oh gosh, the word just escaped my memory, but essentially just, you know, tagging along behind someone who opened the door. And once he's in there, then he realizes, oh, I've got this program here that will allow me to shoot the coins out like a slug thrower, basically, and as hard. So he's able to incapacitate and use his cables as restraining devices, and so all this stuff. So you get the very logical thinking of BB-8 as far as him trying to trying to create an escape opportunity for Rose and Finn, when of course he shows up and sees DJ instead, who looks like he needs a bath according to BB-8. That's the way that he thinks about him. And it's piggybacking. I don't know why I couldn't remember piggybacking in the moment that I was doing this, but piggybacking, that's how BB-8 got in to the Canto Bight police station. Somebody swiping a card and piggybacking in with that police officer. So anyway, ultimately, they manage to steal the ship, which does not happen in the novelization. It happens just as we see it in the movie, where, you know, what's your story, Roundy? And then the next time we see DJ and BB-8, it's on the ship and they're picking up Rose and Finn. But BB-8 is actually giving Rose and Finn the business because he thinks that they might have taken off without him, and they have to assure BB-8, no, we're coming back for you. But it sounds like BB-8 is not entirely convinced that that was going to be the case. Anyway, so the rest of that scene happens more or less as you saw it in the movie. And that is going to do it for the video version of the podcast. Over on the audio version at sw7x7.com/iTunes, or wherever you like to listen to podcasts, there's going to be a little bit extra about how this part of the novelization also ties in to another Star Wars media property, so go check that out if you don't mind. As for this video, though, it just remains for me to say thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.